You can't just walk away from this! Watch me.
The divorce papers were still warm from my trembling hands when I stepped out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun. The sky was clear, people walked past laughing, traffic flowed as if nothing important had happened, yet my entire world had just collapsed. 20 years of marriage had ended with a few signatures, a quiet nod from the judge, and one final glance from the woman I had once believed would grow old beside me. I carried nothing except a small duffel bag filled with clothes and memories that no longer belonged anywhere. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't even look back. I simply walked away, believing I had lost everything that had ever mattered. But before I reached the end of the street, a long black limousine slowly pulled up beside me, and what happened next would change my life forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's destiny, please take a moment to like this video, comment, "Kindness Echo," share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us miracles often arrive when life feels completely broken. My name is Rowan Mercer, and until that afternoon, I thought I understood what failure looked like. I was 48 years old, a skilled carpenter who had spent decades building homes for other families, while unknowingly watching my own family slowly fall apart. My wife, Celeste, had fallen in love with a life filled with luxury, expensive vacations, and social status. My simple way of living embarrassed her more each passing year. She often reminded me that honesty didn't pay enough bills, and that dreams couldn't compete with wealthy friends who lived in gated neighborhoods. I worked longer hours, accepted more projects, and missed birthdays, anniversaries, and countless family dinners trying to provide everything she wanted. Ironically, the harder I worked to save my marriage, the further it slipped away. The divorce itself was strangely quiet. There were no dramatic arguments. She simply said she deserved more than the life I could offer. She kept the house because it had been renovated using her inheritance. Most of our savings disappeared through legal agreements, and I left with only my tools and a small amount of money that wouldn't last long. My heart wasn't broken because I had lost the house. It shattered because I realized the woman I loved had stopped believing in me years before I noticed. As I walked along the sidewalk, the limousine stopped beside me. The tinted windows slowly lowered, revealing an elderly gentleman wearing an elegant navy suit. His silver hair was perfectly combed, but his eyes carried a softness that immediately caught my attention. He asked if I was Rowan Mercer. I nodded cautiously, wondering if another legal problem had somehow found me before I even had time to breathe. The gentleman introduced himself as Theodore Ashcombe, one of the wealthiest business leaders in the state. I had heard his name before. He owned construction companies, charitable foundations, and businesses that employed thousands of people. Yet there he was, personally asking me to get into his limousine. Everything about the situation felt impossible, but something inside me said I should listen. Inside the limousine, Theodore quietly handed me an old photograph. My hand shook the moment I recognized it. It showed a younger version of myself standing beside an old wooden bridge deep in the countryside. Next to me stood a frightened teenage boy whose face I had almost forgotten after more than 30 years. Memories flooded back with overwhelming force. One rainy evening during my 20s, I had discovered a terrified teenager sitting beneath that bridge after running away from an abusive home. He had no food, no money, and no hope. I had taken him to a diner, bought him dinner, found him temporary shelter, and helped connect him with a local youth program. I never asked for anything in return. After a few weeks, he disappeared into a better life, and I simply continued with mine, believing it had been a small act of kindness that anyone would have done. Theodore smiled gently and explained that frightened teenager had been his only grandson, Julian Ashcombe. Julian had eventually inherited the family business after turning his life around. Theodore confessed that for years they had searched for the man who saved Julian's life, but all they knew was his first name and that he worked with wood. After decades of searching through thousands of records, Julian had finally found me only days earlier. Ironically, the discovery came on the same day my marriage officially ended. I couldn't speak. Tears filled my eyes before I even realized I was crying. Theodore placed a comforting hand on my shoulder and quietly told me that one moment of compassion had echoed through an entire generation of their family. Julian believed he would never have survived without the stranger who treated him like a human being when everyone else ignored him. Instead of offering sympathy, Theodore offered me something I never expected. He asked if I would visit the headquarters of Ashcombe Builders the following morning. Not for charity. Not for pity. But because Julian believed the company desperately needed someone with integrity rather than another executive chasing profits. That night, I rented the cheapest motel room I could find. The room smelled of old carpet and worn furniture, yet I slept better than I had in years. For the first time since the divorce, someone had looked at me and seen value instead of failure. Julian Ashcombe greeted me personally before I reached the reception desk. He was now a confident businessman in his early 40s, yet the gratitude in his eyes remained exactly the same as it had beneath that bridge all those years ago. Without hesitation, he embraced me like family. As we toured the company, I noticed something unusual. Workers smiled when Julian passed them. He knew their names, asked about their families, and thanked janitors with the same respect he showed executives. Later he admitted he learned that lesson from me long ago. He remembered how I treated him with dignity when he believed he had none. Julian explained that the company had expanded so quickly that many managers focused only on profits. Employee morale had fallen, corners were being cut on construction sites, and honesty had slowly disappeared from the workplace. He didn't need another businessman. He needed someone who understood people. To my complete disbelief, he offered me a position overseeing craftsmanship, employee mentorship, and ethical building standards. The salary was higher than anything I had ever imagined earning. Even more surprising, he insisted my experience mattered more than expensive degrees because character could not be taught in classrooms. The months that followed transformed my life in ways money alone never could. I traveled between construction sites encouraging younger workers, teaching apprentices the pride of building something meant to last generations instead of merely finishing projects quickly. Slowly, workplace accidents decreased, customer satisfaction improved, and employees began taking pride in their work again. Productivity rose naturally because people finally felt respected. Meanwhile, news of the company's remarkable turnaround spread across the industry. Business magazines praised Ashcombe Builders for combining financial success with genuine compassion toward employees. Whenever reporters asked Julian about the secret behind their transformation, he never mentioned strategy first. He always said everything changed because one ordinary carpenter reminded everyone that every strong building begins with a solid foundation, and every great company begins with honest people. Life, however, has a curious way of bringing the past back when least expected. Nearly 2 years after my divorce, I attended a community charity event sponsored by the company. Hundreds of local families gathered for free home repair projects and neighborhood improvements. As volunteers painted houses and repaired playgrounds, I unexpectedly saw Celeste standing across the street. She looked almost unchanged, but the confidence she once carried had faded. I later learned the wealthy businessman she had left me for lost much of his fortune during risky investments. Their relationship ended soon afterward. The glamorous life she chased disappeared almost as quickly as it had arrived. She slowly approached me with tears filling her eyes. I could see regret written across every expression. Time had taught her painful lessons neither of us expected. Although she apologized sincerely for the choices she had made, something inside me had already healed. I wasn't angry anymore. Carrying bitterness would have meant remaining trapped in the past. I wished her peace, genuinely hoping she would rebuild her life, but I also understood that forgiveness does not always mean returning to what once was. Sometimes it simply means refusing to let old pain control your future. Walking away from that conversation, I felt lighter than I had in decades. One evening, Theodore invited me to his countryside estate overlooking rolling green hills. As the sun began setting, he handed me a beautifully carved wooden box. Inside lay the old photograph from beneath the bridge alongside a handwritten letter from Julian. The letter explained that every major success in his life had grown from the kindness of one stranger who expected absolutely nothing in return. He wrote that businesses could create wealth, but compassion created legacies. He thanked me for proving that ordinary people possess extraordinary power simply by choosing kindness when no one is watching. I stared across the golden fields as tears quietly rolled down my face. My marriage had ended. My home had disappeared. My future had once looked empty beyond repair. Yet losing everything I believed defined my life had opened the door to discovering the person I was always meant to become. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may be struggling today. Your support helps more people discover stories of hope, resilience, and the incredible power of compassion.